Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again with another Genshin Impact retrospective, looking back at the I quit moments. You might be familiar with a lot of the sort of dissatisfaction, a lot of the anger of the Genshin Impact community over the past couple of patches. And with things like Wuthering Waves' Cyberpunk collaboration, stuff like its Mengzhou drip marketing, all of that, well, it's making a lot of other games in the space, not just Genshin, look really bad. However, when Genshin's been the market leader, when Genshin's been the title, right, that has kind of like reigned supreme in a lot of different ways over the past decade, well, it is a little bit embarrassing for it to be toppled by a competitor that makes way less money, has way less to invest, but of course just seems to be doing a lot more. So without further ado, let's go ahead, check out how the I quit trend became Genshin's most defining moment in years, when in reality, you'd hope that'd be because of the good stuff getting added to the game, but it's about the stuff that they're not doing instead.
Recently, if you've been around YouTube, especially within the gacha space, you've probably noticed a growing trend of a certain type of video being directed at Genshin Impact. And honestly, I think these videos say a lot about the current state of the game. And even more than that, they highlight a shift in the conversation surrounding Genshin Impact itself. A transition from what the conversation used to be to what it has become today. These videos are the I quit Genshin Impact videos. Now,
there are so many of them, it's absolutely insane. And it's pretty much coming from pretty much every single corner of the Genshin Impact space. The number of people that I've seen on like Twitter with posts going viral just talking about how they're quitting Genshin and then playing Wuwa instead is surprising. And guys, people are just like openly quitting and saying they're Wuwa and they're not, saying they're doing Wuwa and they're not even getting hate. They're getting a bunch of likes because other people, I guess, are doing it too. Which is just something that you would never expect to have happened in the space up until recently.
Right off the bat, I imagine a whole lot of people would immediately come to the conclusion that these are just Wuthering Waves players or content creators looking for another opportunity to bash Genshin Impact.
That's what I'm saying, right? Because, I mean, we've been doing it for a minute. Rightfully so. But right now, it's Genshin people doing all of this.
But honestly, to a certain extent, that is not really true. I mean, yes, there are some content creators who specifically mention Wuthering Waves as the reason they decided to quit Genshin Impact. But when you actually look into many of these channels, what you quickly realize is that some of them are the furthest thing from Wuthering Waves channels. I mean, some are variety gacha creators who cover every major gacha game on the market, while others are not even gacha focused at all. And yet, across all these different creators, over the past several months, even stretching back up to a year or two, the idea of quitting Genshin Impact has become a recurring topic of discussion. It has become a point of genuine interest. So the big question is why? And I don't mean why would someone quit Genshin Impact. We could probably come up with a long list of reasons why a player might decide to leave the game at any point in time. No.
I hope he focuses on why there's been so much of it happening so recently and to such a high volume.
What I mean is why now?
Okay, nice. Not pre-watch, by the way. Sometimes I have a feeling I know where a certain video gonna go.
Because if the answer is simply that Genshin Impact isn't your cup of tea, then let's be honest, Genshin Impact has not been everyone's cup of tea for quite a while now.
I would say Genshin Impact stopped being cup of teas for most people after Fontaine ended. Yeah, I think in between Fontaine and Natlan, kind of like that gap and period of time, it's where Genshin Impact stopped being a game for most people.
That is not new development. So why are we suddenly seeing this growing desire to leave the game this many years into its lifespan? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So
I really genuinely do think Natlan was the end. And these Genshin devs couldn't have fucked up worse with the scheduling of Natlan and how bad it was with like Wuwa and 2.0. Good God. The like player conversion drop off from like Natlan and then Renacida must have just been like a fucking like continuous flow, bro.
if you're into this kind of content, make sure to like the video and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Why do you think we're seeing this sudden wave of I quit Genshin Impact videos on YouTube? Do you think it's simply a coincidence? Do you think there is something deeper going on behind the scenes, or do you have an entirely different explanation? Let me know that and more in the comments below, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you're interested on any of my future videos.
Okay, he kind of stopped speaking English there for a second. That was kind of wild. I will say I was impressed that he was able to say words that quickly, but also impressed that he kept that cut in there.
All right. Let's get into it. See, the idea of seeing more and more people with at least the intention of quitting Genshin Impact is a very funny one, especially when you consider something I've said in many other videos before, that Genshin Impact has never seen more growth than it has over the last 2.5 to 3 years. I mean, really think about this. If you look back at Genshin's history, you realize that the periods where the game was at its absolute peak were also the periods where we observed the least amount of meaningful growth. I mean, from 2020 all the way to a large portion of 2024, one of the biggest requests from the Genshin community, and honestly the gacha community in general, was endgame content.
He's not wrong. The game has, in a lot of ways, listened to players and added in stuff that's been requested, but it's really bad.
The idea that this
Bro, it's like you asked your parents for like a car, right? And when you ask your parents for a car, you can get a lot of things back. It's like Hoyoverse, when asked to make a new endgame, they like got one from... You wanted the endgame from Mercedes? Bro, you got the endgame from the junkyard.
Abyss should not be the only endgame activity, especially when you consider the sheer number of characters the game continues to give its players. I mean, players wanted more places to use those characters. They wanted different challenges. And
now, in your new endgame, you only have places to use the brand new newest characters that came out.
Then on June 1st, 2024, we got that devs listen moment from Genshin Impact. For the first time in the game's history, we had actual new endgame content, the Imaginarium Theater.
Dude, this game mode literally gave me cancer when I played it the first time. Dude, this game mode is so bad, it's crazy.
And regardless of whatever issues came with that endgame, regardless of whatever problems people had with it,
it's the most unfun shit I've ever seen. It's like, hey, we're gonna force you to build the worst teams you've ever played before and like hope it works out. Also, there's a lot of RNG in there as well.
What may still have with it today, the reality is that the game experienced significant growth. And really, ever since then, we continue to see the idea of growth associated with Genshin Impact.
Genshin Impact definitely had growth, but not all growth is good growth. For example, cancer literally is extra cells growing on your body, but you don't want that. And I can definitely say Stygian Onslaught and Imaginarium Theater are more like a cancer than like actual good growth when it comes to this game.
I mean, just a year and some change after the release of the Imaginarium Theater, we got yet another endgame, the Stygian Onslaught. And really, this meant in a single year, Genshin Impact had seen more noticeable growth than it's had in the previous 3. And
yeah, it's like, yeah, in 2020, like in 2024, Genshin was like a normal looking dude. And then like in 2026, like bro's like coming in looking like a fucking boomer from Left 4 Dead 2. Like, that's essentially what the transformation was. Yes, Genshin is a bigger game now.
Growth did not stop with Endgame either, no. I mean, whether you look at the animation, when playing something like the Valkyr story quest or the Linnea story quest, you can clearly notice that Genshin Impact has continued to raise the cinematic quality of its dialogue scenes. Or whether you look at the stories themselves, stories that have given us far more stakes. Stories that are focusing on the ideas that actually matter to us, the players.
Check Genshin Impact Google Trends. That's a good idea. I haven't been taking a look at Genshin's Google Trends, actually. That's a good idea. Look at it over the past 5 years. Oh. Oh, that really does actually look bad. Oh, wait, no, that is an undeniable, unending fall off that started with Natlan. That really started with Natlan. And then has just been unstoppable ever since. Yeah, 2025 was really bad. Like, over here, it's not terrible, but it's definitely going down. But 2025, like 2020, Natlan itself was literally an insane downtrend. And it actually started with, let's see when Wuwa released. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, ever since Wuwa released, yeah, that hasn't been good. Now, I just want to... For like just educational sake, I do want to see where other games are coming up. Oh, that's looking pumping. Oh, wait, wait, this looks like the same level of hype as Ridacita, if not higher. We're currently at a similar level of hype to 2.0. Ooh, that's looking a little bit spicy. Now let's look at Zenless. Dude, they might intersect at some point. I could see it happening. What about ZZZ? You tried. You tried. Dude, Honkai Star Rail has fallen. Oh my god. Look at HSR and Woo. This is Amphorius and Renacida. Both at the same time, right? Amphorius and Renacida. And then look at where HSR is now compared to Woo-Wah. Woo-Wah is back to Renacida. HSR is at the lowest level it's ever been. HSR is at the lowest level ever. Woo-Wah is back to Renacida levels. Genshin's at its lowest level ever. And then ZZZ is on its 3.0 release. Ooh, Amphorius really did a number on them. Holy moly. Oh, was that released? Oh, shit, never mind. This was still Penacony. Nah, this was Amphorius, actually. No, this is Amphorius, actually. Yeah, it's right here. Oh, no, HSR has just been on the downtrend since fucking Penacony, since Woo-Wah's release. Did Woo-Wah kill HSR? I don't know. But basically, what I'll say at this point is that Wuthering Waves is unironically the game that looks the closest to actually meeting Genshin Impact ever. Like straight up, Woo-Wah is actually looking like the only game that's ever going to come slightly close. I'm not even joking, guys. It's actually right there. That's wild. And now for fun, let's put in Arknight's Enfield. What about NT? That's rough. That's rough. That's a good comparison to make, though, because the whole I quit movement, bro, it is definitely lining up with Woo-Wah getting more players, Woo-Wah getting more popular, right? And Genshin being at the literal lowest levels it's ever been. That was good info. That was good info and good context. Let's get back over here now.
And really, this meant in a single year, Genshin Impact had seen more noticeable growth than it's had in the previous 3. And the growth did not stop with Endgame either, no. I mean, whether you look at the animation, when playing something like the Valkyr story quest or the Linnea story quest, you can clearly notice that Genshin Impact has continued to raise the cinematic quality of its dialogue scenes.
But it's too little too late. I think people are recognizing Genshin's only deciding to do all this stuff now that there's legitimate competitors in the space. But you've already kind of like made your reputation as a lower quality developer. That's why even despite putting the most resources into the game that they ever have, it just keeps going down. Imagine how depressing this must feel as like the Genshin shareholder or like the Genshin lead dev. I'd be panicking. Bro, you have put in more quality of life. You have put in more effort into changes and like fixing the game than you ever have had in the last 6 years, and nothing's working. You're going overdrive, trying to implement everything, the backlog, and nothing's working to bring the players back. That has to be rough. But it's so deserved, isn't it? It is so deserved, isn't it?
Or whether you look at the stories themselves, stories that have given us far more stakes, stories that are focusing on the ideas that actually matter to us, the players. The situation surrounding the Fatsui, the traveler's journey to find their sibling, the
too little, too late.
Sovereigns, the shades, information about the heavenly principles.
They did more for the overarching like lore surrounding this game as well. But guys, it feels like they've been trying to just catch up on fucking phoning it in for the past 6 years.
Information about the heavenly principles. These are things that the story is actively diving into right now.
They're not diving into it. They're speed running it right now.
All things that are very different from how things used to be. I mean, in the past, many of the stories were far more self-contained. They were more intentional, more localized, and really often disconnected from the larger mysteries that players were actually wanting to learn about.
They weren't related at all. I just think they're retconning the entire story at the last minute because they realize they need to change something. That their old strat of just these isolated regional stories that are not connected at all, I think that didn't work, and now they're just retconning it. Not by changing anything. It's because they never had anything established in the first place. I think they kept the, like, overarching story as loosey-goosey bullshit as possible so that they could all just write it in after the fact and then had it try to make sense. Because they weren't even trying to write that shit in before.
And really, that is what is so interesting. I mean, with all this growth that has happened, all this growth that is clearly visible within Genshin Impact, a video like this still exists. And not only does it exist, but if the views and engagements of many of these I Quit Genshin Impact videos are anything to go by, then the sentiment they're trying to push is one that is shared by a surprisingly large number of people. And I believe the reason for this isn't some decision that was suddenly enacted or some sudden hatred that people developed for Genshin Impact. No. Instead, I think it is a veil being lifted. See, having been in the gacha content creation space, and by extension, the gacha community for as long as I have, one thing I've come to realize is that yes, players absolutely love the idea of growth within a video game, but not for the reason most people think they do. See, most people, and I would argue even a lot of gacha developers, seem to believe that simply changing a game, writing lines of code that improve certain features, or those that add entirely new system is enough to get players excited and supportive of your game. And
I'm glad we're starting to see people draw some of those parallels between the Woo-Wah collab with Cyberpunk and people quitting Genshin.
yes, that is a part of it, but I believe what takes the bulk of people's interest is what that change says about the possibility, or rather the probability of future change. The idea of entering a new region or a new version today, feeling excited to explore it, excited to experience the story, while also understanding that the next region and the next version would likely be an entirely different experience. It's understanding that if there are problems you notice in this region, they'll probably be addressed in the next one. Understanding that if there is a QOL feature that would have made this region more enjoyable or more player friendly, there is a good chance it will be added in the next region, or at least within the next few updates. That is what growth is.
And this is where we're getting the difference between healthy growth, like healthy muscle mass. Imagine you're a dude trying to get big, right? You could do it the legitimate way by, like, going to the gym, pumping bars and stuff like that, or you can inject synthol into your muscles, which is just like oil and some shit, and just make him look big. We've all seen the motherfuckers that do that. They look retarded. Genshin is basically injecting synthol to get big instead of working out naturally, which is what Woo-Wah is doing. Because guess what? One's a lot easier than the other to do.
Work being done that you know will eventually find its way into the game, regardless of whether you're personally asking for it or not. That is what I believe earns the genuine appreciation of players. Because what players, whether they consciously realize it or not, have always associated with growth in a gacha game is not just the improvements they're receiving today, it is the confidence that those improvements will continue tomorrow. So the big question becomes, what kind of growth are we actually seeing in Genshin Impact? And this is where things get very interesting. Because yes, even if we acknowledge that there has been growth, significant growth in fact, what we also begin to understand is that this doesn't necessarily feel like growth designed for the benefit of players. It doesn't feel like the kind of growth players can look at, understand, and confidently expect more of in the future. But rather, it feels more like growth intended to keep players quiet. A kind of growth intended to have players understand that it can be done, it should be done, hell, it has been done, but who knows if it will continue to be done. And I think the proof of this comes down to two very significant factors. The first is the timing of these changes. I mean, it is not a coincidence that the period when Genshin Impact chose to grow was 2024.
And we all know which game came out in 2024. We ought to be talking about it.
Not only the same year that Wuthering Waves released, but the same period where we were getting announcement after announcement about upcoming gacha titles. The same period where games
when ZZZ was coming out, when Enfield was getting announced, when NTE was advertising as well, when Silver Palace made its debut, etc., etc.
like Arknight, Enfield, and Neverness to Everness were generating massive attention and preparing for release. And it just so happened that this became the moment where Genshin Impact decided to improve the game.
Thank God said for Genshin Impact is that NTE and Enfield both GPQ'd themselves in the head. Yep. They both games literally are dead.
I mean, this was when they worked on the wishing system, when they decided to give us a free yearly 5-star with each anniversary.
Honestly, like, these guys got bailed out so hard. Literally, they got bailed out so hard.
And also, as said before, where they introduced the new endgame content. And players, whether they were Genshin fans or not, understood what this meant perfectly. They understood that the one period where they suddenly started receiving meaningful improvements was the same period where genuine competition existed. And more importantly, they understood that if the competition had never appeared, there was a very real possibility that many of these improvements would never have happened in the first place.
And that's the thing. Genshin players will permanently owe Woo-Wah a favor. because of this.
Though maybe I could be wrong. Maybe everyone who thinks this way could collectively be wrong. Maybe all of these changes have been planned for years.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah, Natland having exploration mechanics, guys, was totally planned for years, and all the exploration mechanics in Natland are literally carbon copies of UWA's. That was planned, guys. Believe me.
It happened to be a massive coincidence that they were all delivered at the exact same times all of these announcements were happening, and all of these competing games were beginning to emerge. But even if we were to consider that to be the case, the second factor puts a complete stop to that confusion. The things that still haven't been fixed, like our good old friend, the skip button. And
Skip button. And we all know, weekly locked domains.
at this point, is there really an excuse? I mean, not only has it become a staple feature within the gacha genre, whether you're talking about non-Hoyoverse games like Arknight's Enfield or Neverness to Everness, or even Hoyoverse own games like Honkai Star Rail and Zelda Zone Zero.
It's really simple. You put the ball in the dev's court. Dev, if you're confident that your cutscenes and your story is good, then put the skip button in. And if your shit's good, people won't skip it. They'll watch the whole thing. By not putting a skip button in, I assume you're forcing people to watch your stories because they suck dick. If you need to force somebody to watch your story, then clearly it's not very good, is it? So why don't you have some confidence in your fucking product and let people skip it? Because if it's good, they won't.
But it is also
Pussies.
a feature that would be incredibly relevant in a game like Genshin Impact, considering the sheer amount of story content, side quest, and world quest that exist within it. But even beyond that, there
Okay, I need to like... You skipped the Cyberpunk story. Are you on crack cocaine? That playthrough is literally on YouTube. Anyways, yeah, I don't know what this guy's even saying anymore. Bro was saying I skipped the Cyberpunk story with the live playthrough on YouTube. It is what it is.
There are still situations that happen naturally within a gacha game where a skip button becomes absolutely necessary. I mean, imagine playing through one of those dialogue heavy quests that are a staple of this game. Sitting through a particularly long conversation, finally getting close to the end, and then your connection times out. And you have to start all over again from the very beginning. I mean, I would be willing to bet that every single person watching this video has experienced something like that at least once. And now, like many other frustrations, this is the kind of thing that is completely outside the player's control. The exact kind of situation where a skip button should exist. Moving past that though, there is then the rewards problem.
I don't even think you need to explain why a skip button is necessary for your game, bro. It's I mean, I'm glad he gave the reasoning for it in case somebody was like really retarded and didn't know, but like it's just kind of obvious, like, hey, if your story sucks, I don't want to witness it.
I mean, a while back, the Genshin Impact community attempted a boycott of the game. And while that whole movement ultimately went nowhere, what it did reveal was that there was a genuine frustration within the player base regarding the amounts of polls players received in each version of Genshin Impact. I mean, think about this. We are already at a point where a large portion of the free-to-play community has essentially decided that the weapons banner is not worth touching. The point where most content creators would not even recommend pulling on the weapons banner as a free-to-play. And yet, even when players limit themselves to characters alone, pulling can still feel restrictive because the game generally averages somewhere around 65 to 80 pulls per version. And
guys, the Genshin free-to-play issue has gotten so bad because of the new endgames. And so there needs to be like a bit of a link drawn to, yes, the pull count has been low forever, but the low pull count wasn't really an issue until recently because you didn't need the newest unit to play the game back then, but you do now. You need the newest unit to clear the content and get the primo gems now. You have to. You didn't need to from like 2024 like and beyond, and in the past you didn't need to, but now you do. So having the low number of pulls when you need them for the end game is just, it's really gotten out of hand.
those aren't the only issues. I mean, there's the fact that stamina still decreases simply from running. The fact that many players still feel there aren't enough quality of life improvements within the game. The fact that numerous small improvements that could make the overall experience smoother and more convenient still have not been addressed. And when you look at everything that has been improved, the new
It does make you wonder how these guys pick and choose what to fix, what to add to the game, and what to say, yeah, let's just fuck them. Fuck them, don't add that shit in. How do they decide what they prioritize?
new animations, the new endgame modes, the visual upgrades, all of the growth Genshin Impact has undeniably received. It raises a very obvious question. Why have so many of
Yeah, is it like the spin wheel game where it's like... Okay, fuck it. fuck it, add the new endgame, but make it really bad. Like, it has to be something like that, right?
These significantly easier changes being left untouched. Why have so many of these long-standing complaints remained unresolved? And honestly, we already know the answer. The player base have always known the answer. It's the same reason we're seeing complaints after complaints about Genshin Impact
Let me make sure I can read some of these.
Across social media every single.
The funniest is Doro calling them out. I think when you're at the point where Doro44 is just openly shitting on the game via tweets, that it's probably, yeah, no, we've reached a new level. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Doro44 is just shitting on the game openly in random tweets now. That's another barometer for, dude, this game's fucked.
Media every single.
Now it's Kuro44.
Day. The same reason we're seeing more and more I quit Genshin Impact videos appear on YouTube. Because the conclusion many players have arrived at is that the growth we've seen in Genshin Impact wasn't genuine growth in the way we wanted it to be. At best, it was reactive. And while people have understood that for quite some time, what we're seeing now is them finally beginning to voice that understanding. But
bro, I had to assume Doro's Hoyo contract is actually over. Like, I feel like he had one and it actually expired.
I think the more frustrating part of this entire discussion is what we see, especially from the pro-Hoyo crowd, whenever these complaints are voiced. I mean, let's be clear. No matter how many I quit Genshin Impact videos are made today, or how many are made in the future, Genshin Impact is going to be fine. That is simply what it means to be the biggest gacha on the market. But the reality is that the existence of so many videos like these should still be a cause for concern. It should be something worth discussing, something worth analyzing, something that leads both communities and content creators to ask why so many people are arriving at the same conclusion. But instead, what we've seen is a level of discourse that has somehow devolved from something worse than what we've witnessed throughout most of Genshin's lifespan. I mean, as always, the blind positivity is still there. Most things Genshin does are still praised, and those rare moments where an actual boycott or a genuine pushback against the game's practice is attempted, they are still ignored by the game itself, just as they have always been. The difference though right now is that where every insult and every defense of Genshin Impact used to be directed at Tectone, these days it is increasingly directed at the Wuthering Waves content creators. And understanding why is easy. I mean, Wuthering Waves content creators are accessible, they're visible, they're easy targets. It is much easier to turn them into villains than it is to acknowledge that the complaints being raised might actually be legitimate regardless of who is making them. It is easy.
Well, this is the thing, guys. Having people like Kuro44 come in and also additionally legitimize those complaints, it helps out a lot too.
Easier to pick a group, label them as biased, and dismiss everything they say than it is to confront the actual source of the frustration.
But it doesn't work when the Genshin Impact players themselves are saying it. And you want to know what this does in tandem? It just makes it so that I was right the whole time. Glaive Kyo was right the whole time. Nigerian perspective, we was just right the whole time. That's like the point, is when the Hoyo creators that were uploading hundreds of pro Hoyo videos are now saying the same exact stuff is bad that everyone else has been saying is bad, the other games, right? Well, maybe it just means Genshin was bad in the first place. And it's always great for people to think you're the devil, that you're awful, terrible, bad, wrong, and then you were just right the whole time. I don't know why I'm saying that. It must have happened to me a couple of times down the road, right?
Devs, the executives, the decision makers of the game. The same people who make promises they never keep. The same people who somehow find time to work on everything except some of the most requested conveniences. But why do that? I mean, doing so would require admitting that there are genuine problems with the game. It would require talking about what those problems are, and even more importantly, it would require admitting that many of these I quit Genshin Impact videos, and perhaps even more controversially, many of the Wuthering Waves content creators making these arguments might actually have a point. And while I personally think that that would be a healthier outcome, for some reason I just don't see that happening. But that is just my opinion. What do you think? What do you think?
My personal take is, guys, is that Genshin Impact is simply just one of those games that was relying on both its reputation and the sunk cost to retain people, right? But as we've clearly fucking seen, that can only do so much. And we're currently at the point where a magical moment could potentially occur in the gacha space. Woo-wah finally actually legitimately overtakes Genshin Impact as the most searched up, the most popular gacha. Well, I guess on YouTube at the very least, right? And there's so much potential for amazing things to occur when this actually happens, if it does actually happen. Because the main takeaway is that this title has had, you can kind of just see it over here, a lot of time to operate without any competition whatsoever. Literally fucking none. And instead of further growing and further enhancing their game, right, and making it reach peaks it's never, peaks it's never seen before, They decided to make it just a complete fucking shit show. And a cash grab, money milking. And now we're finally seeing a point, almost 2 years after Wuwa's release, where, well, the gap's only been getting smaller every single time. Is it deserved? Absolutely. Now, for the last bit, let's see what web searches look like. Let's see what web searches look like. Ooh, unfortunately, the gap is not there yet. The gap is still wider on web searches, but Wuwa is still at least the one title that seems to almost be there. At the very fucking least, Wuwa is still the one title that happens to be almost fucking there. But yeah, web searches in general, a little bit rough, but at least on YouTube. Well, shit, bro. Shit, boys. We're almost there. Wuwa. Oh, that's all the porn searches? You know what? That might actually explain it. Let me know what you all thought about that one. And of course, awesome video by Nigerian Perspective. Peace out.